That was that used to be so we got taken over by so basically still the same Did you guys use Foreman? I'm not using Foreman as part of it. We don't look at what we do to go on. No, we don't just like here.
Alright, I think we're good to go now at 16:29. If somebody is 1 minute late, then you. Marek, I wish you good luck.
Thank you. So, hello everybody, welcome to my presentation about Foreman integration with Chef. So, first let me introduce myself. I'm not sure if you can see it, but it's not important anyway. So, my name is Marek and I work in Red Hat for more than 1 year now, and most of the time I work on the Foreman project. So first, please let me know how many of you use Foreman. That's a great number. And how many of you use Chef? So much. Cool. So it wasn't wasted time, I guess. So in this presentation, I'd like to briefly show you the status of our current work of the integration with the Chef. So I'll try to provision a new system in here and bootstrap Chef client on this machine. Then I'll talk about other integration bits, and I'll try to show you what are the challenges that we are experiencing with further steps of integration. And also I'll try to mention how hard it is or how easy it is to actually integrate other configuration tools in the same place that we have here. So this will be, or this presentation will include some live demo, so it's kind of scary part for me, but hopefully fun for you. So let me start with some live action. So as you can see here, we have Foreman installed. It's the nightly version, so there are no bugs. So we'll just log in. And I'll start with the provisioning very quickly because it will take some time. So in here I have form for creating a new virtual machine, so I'll give a name. Now I select a host group that this host is assigned, which here gives me, or by this I get the parameters inherited from this host group, so I don't have to set this for every host that I provision. I select a compute resource, so we could work with a bare metal, or we could use any other compute resource provider. In here I have just libvirt set up, but we support Overt and other engines like Amazon, Google Compute Engines, VMware, things like that. Here you can see that I could also assign a Puppet classes to this host, so it would configure my host accordingly. But we are trying to work with Chef here, so just ignore the stuff for a moment. Here we can set up networking. So when Foreman creates this host, it will also create a DNS record and DHCPVs. Also, it will configure a TFTP server, so this host, when boots, it gets the IP address and runs the installer in unattended fashion or mode. Here we can select the operating system, so I'll be installing a Debian in here, and hopefully the wireless network will work during this. Here I can set some hardware configuration, so just briefly over this. And here we can see that we have some parameters I was talking about when I assigned the host group. So these parameters are inherited from this host group, and the most important part in here is that we can set that we would like to use the chef. We want to set the chef server URL and also the validation private key, which will be used when the chef client is run for the first time to register in a chef server that I've also installed here in my infrastructure. So now, when I hit the submit button, I should see a new note in here. It's currently booting. So installer should start in a moment, and it will download a configuration file for this installer, so it knows what software should it install and things like that. So I'll just put it as a thumbnail in here, so we can see whether it works or not. So how is this working? It downloads the pre-C configuration file. We support not only pre-C installers but also installers based on Kickstart. So we have something called provisioning templates here, and as you can see, we have a number of them. So for Debian, hopefully you can see it at least. It's just a configuration file, so we can you can preset the answers for the questions of installer. In a similar way, we have this finish script, which is basically a bash script. And we have responsible design, so it's down. And here you can see it's basically just a bash script. So you can see that we are looking into a parameter value for a particular node, and we can see that we don't want to use a puppet, we want to use a chef, so we skip this puppet. Because the Foreman, as you probably know, is built on the top of the puppet, so puppet is some kind of a first-class citizen in Foreman. But in here, in our template, we have also support for chef. So here you can see that we have this snippet that we call. Snippet is basically just another provisioning template which can be shared among other templates. So let's look at that. So it's here. And here is probably the most interesting part. So this script is run after installer finishes. So as you can see, it will install the chef gem, and also it will install the chef handler Foreman gem, which contains the integration bits we created. Also, we create a file with a validation certificate with a private key, so the chef client can register. Here is the chef configuration file. So this is pretty obvious. I think here's the most important part in here, that we set the chef server URL, and also here you can see the configuration options that we set for our integration. I'll talk about details later, but here you can see we again specify some URL, and we enable files uploading and reports uploading for this chef client. And here we just set the default role that should be assigned to this host, so chef client is then run. You can see it in here. And when it's assigned this role, it will just converge and set this role to the client persistently. So now we can look into this demo role into chef server. So I have the chef open source chef server installed here, and we can see that the role demo has just one recipe. And if we go to this cookbook, you can see that, or I can enlarge this. So the only thing it does basically is that it installs the package called toilet. It also uploads the ASCII art font, and it will set two templates in here, so some login script which will basically just print out the host name of the particular host and sets the message of the day to some attributes that we can find here. So we should see the message of the day that this system was provisioned by Foreman and uses Chef. Okay, so meanwhile, because it will take still some time to install, so I'll go on with other details. So I'd like to compare how the things work with Puppet and Chef, so you can see what parts of the integration we already have and what should we concentrate on in the future. So in a Puppet, on some level of abstraction, every run or conversion of the node starts by sending a fact from the node to a Puppet master, and the node asks for a catalog. In the Chef terminology, this would mean upload data from OHI and ask for a run list. The Puppet master then can use, and in our setup and how the thing works with Foreman, is that the Puppet master asks Foreman what Puppet classes should be applied for this particular node. And Foreman also provides the values values for the parameters for these classes that should be applied. Again, in Chef word, it would probably mean something like give me the cookbooks and recipes for this node and provide me attributes for this host. Then Puppet Master compiles it to a catalog and sends back to the node. Node then converges, and after this it uploads the report of this run to the Foreman. So the report in here means something like the log for every resource that was applied or restarted, things like that. So if we now look into a Chef world, the biggest difference in here is that we communicate with the Foreman at the end of the run process. So node first asks for the run list, and Chef answers with the run list and the node attributes, which is computed based on roles and default attributes from cookbooks and things like that. It sends it to the node. Node then runs OHI and combines these attributes together, then converges and upload the status back to Chef. And then optionally, it can run some handlers. For example, in a case when something went wrong or everything was okay. So, for example, you could use it for monitoring or things like that. And here comes our part. We created a new set of handlers that you can use easily for your Chef client that will upload facts, and by facts in here I mean all the Chef attributes to the Foreman, and also it uploads the report of this particular run. So to better understand the infrastructure I have here and I'm working with, I have this little overview. So every bubble is basically a node or host. You can see that I have a Foreman. Hopefully you can see it's the bottom right corner, which is running on my physical machine, and all other nodes are virtual hosts on my libvirt instance. So I have the Chef open source server here, and I already have some nodes that have Chef client installed. And here is something we call Chef proxy, which is just some small application that's responsible for creating DNS and DHCP records and things like that. And also in a 1.4 release, we added this Chef proxy feature, which is currently used in here. So when nodes run the Chef client, they upload the data, as we saw in the previous picture, and this proxy actually handles the authentication. I'll talk about this in the next slide, and then forwards the data to the Foreman. The use case in here is that you can have nodes that don't have direct connection to the Foreman. For example, they can't access internet, and the Foreman proxy would be the only entry point to your infrastructure. But you can also run, you could use the integration also without the Foreman proxy, or you can install Foreman proxy on Foreman. This is, I would say, the most common use case. So let's talk about the authentication for a moment. So in this example, we upload the facts from the node. Chef client uses key-based authentication. So we use the chef client key that is used for direct communication with chef, and we use it for making a digital signature. And these data are signed, and the Foreman proxy then asks the chef for the public key of this particular node. So then it can verify the digital signature, and if it matches, it forwards the data to the Foreman. So if we look to the status of our installer, we can now see that it's running the finished template, so it should be done in a minute. It basically runs or installs the chef gem and run the client for the first time. So in a very near moment we should see the note in here. But meanwhile, since it could take a minute or two, meanwhile we can look into Foreman and what it actually means that we upload this data from the chef client, what's the benefit. So in Foreman we have these monitor features, so you can see the overview of your infrastructure. So we all like the pie charts, right? So we can see that we have the overview of all our hosts. Currently, we see that we have one host with no reports. This is the host that I'm currently installing, since the report was not yet uploaded, but the host already existed within my infrastructure. And we can see that I have 7 hosts out of 6, which means that these hosts are turned off and does not respond or does not upload any report for some time frame. Also, we can see that last events that happened in my infrastructure. So these are basically the reports. I will show details later. And now we can see that the host is booting. So now if I refresh the page, I should see already the report uploaded. So yeah, you can see that I have no host without reports right now, and the host is set as active. Also, we have some statistics here. So we can see some data about our infrastructure. Within my testing infrastructure, it's not so interesting because I have the same architecture for all nodes, but you get the idea. Now I could log into this new host. Yep. To show that the cookbook was applied. So we can see nice ASCII art here saying my host name, and also we can see that the system was provisioned by Foreman and uses chef. So back to Foreman. We can now see the data that were uploaded into a Foreman. So for every host you can see the history. For this node I have just one report, and I can see that 4 resources were applied, which means something was installed or things like that. And if we go into a detail, we can see what exactly happened. So in here we can see that the template of message of the day was changed, so we can also see the diff. So we see that the system was provisioned by Foreman. Also we see the details about what version of package was installed, and we have some metrics here. Basically we have times per resource class. In here it's again not so interesting, but I can show maybe some other example, which is more colorful. So as also you can see that there were some problems, for example. And this is actually a report from Puppet, but you have no way how to distinguish between them. So this is how it would look like for the chef as well if we had more resources. Okay, so hopefully that's about reports, and now facts. So facts are the data that are gathered by OHI and also comes from chef. So if we look for the node 5. Also, as you can see, we have auto-completion, which is pretty handy. We can now see all the facts or data for this node. We sorted by name. We can see that these data are the same as in Chef. So in here, if we look into a Chef server and find a node 5, So these attributes are basically the same we had in Foreman, but we have a different user interface for working with them. So as you already see, so we can search for hosts like this, and for facts. So we can, for example, find all values for memory. So we can see free memory on a particular node. We can also search across the whole infrastructure, so we can see the free memory on every node. We also generate charts for this. In here it doesn't make really much sense, but maybe if we look for another fact, we could see the distribution of the value across the infrastructure, so maybe we can find, let's read the code name. And we could see that I'm using Debian Vise on most of my machines, and there's some Fedora and Ubuntu project. So that's probably the live demo, so get back to the presentation, boring stuff. Okay, so what about further integration? There are a couple of questions that we need to answer before we are moving on. The most important fact is that we don't have easy way how to tell Chef client node which recipes should be executed. But we have to figure out what is the source of the truth. Is it the chef or Foreman? Should you assign these recipes or cookbooks in a Foreman or still in a chef? Or do we need two-way synchronization between Foreman and chef? And this is becoming a bit complex. And also, if we allow users to assign these recipes and cookbooks in a Foreman, then we are basically creating a new UI for a chef. We have command line tool as well, as on the same level as Knife, I would say. We have nice API and web UI, but you know, it feels like rewriting it. So to actually answer these questions, we need your input here. We need to hear your stories. We need to hear your use cases, and then we can realize how you would like to use this together. So I also said that I will talk about how easy it is to add a support for other configuration management tools. So we provide API, so everything you have to do is just upload data in a JSON format. So here you can see this is a format for uploading facts. Basically, we support nested facts because obviously the chef has the nested attributes. So on line 7 you can see that you can also upload nested data. The same works for reports. The most important part in here is just that you have to compute all the metrics and status on the client, which is usually easier because you have all the data up from the run of the node. Not sure about Ansible where there's a push button. So to wrap up this presentation, the most important notes are that we need to hear your stories. We already provide some integration parts that you could use. So for example, you could provision a host and bootstrap a chef client in there. Also, you saw that you could use the monitoring and inventory listing within your chef infrastructure. And the important note in here is that we want to go deeper. We would like to see Chef better integrated, but for that, as I already told you, we need to understand your input. Here are some links. So if you're interested and if you would like to share your use cases, please just visit us on the Foreman channel on Freenode. Also, here are some links for the project wiki and plugins you need for this integration. So I think it's time to thanks for your attention, and if you have any questions, I'm not sure about timing, but okay, so if you have any questions, hit it. So maybe let me ask you, do you find this useful? Would you think about to run the Foreman within your Chef infrastructure? Anyone? Okay, at least one. Okay, that's cool. So once again, thanks for. Oh, I'm sorry. What's the question? Well,
That's not a 2-minute question.
I wouldn't recommend it, but I think there are. It's a personal preference thing. I would say. I have to admit, I like Chef more, but that's not the reason. I think there can be use cases. For example, if you want to merge two infrastructures together, and one is based on a Puppet, one is based on a Chef, and you can use Foreman for this to manage both of them. For example, if there's some merging of two companies or things like that. Also, you just go into existing infrastructure which is built on Chef, and you would like to use Foreman, for example, for provisioning. So maybe this could be a use case. Does it Personally, I don't. This is very, very fresh stuff, so I don't think, I know about some people using Chef with Foreman, but on a different level, they have some Foreman rules for running Chef. So I think there's no one already using it. There's no success story I know about, but I think it should be possible to use it. So if you need any information how to start, just ask me or stop me out. So the question is whether there are any built-in notification system for errors from Chef file. Well, basically these are the reports. So maybe I could show you. There's no notification. Foreman, I think, can't tell you that something went wrong to send an email. Yeah, it can, right? I'm sorry. So there's a way how you can set up Foreman to, for example, send you an email if something went wrong. I'm sorry? What is the way? I have to admit, no, I think it's built in. You just can set up. I would say in some file or maybe using interface, but I haven't used that, so I'm sorry, I can't answer.
Also, what Levy is here, so you can just attack him.
Some kind of web UI is a monetization method for some open source config management tools. Do you find that those tools and those ecosystems work well with Foreman and not perhaps explain it very well? Are you kind of taking an opportunity for those?
Well, I'm sorry, I don't. Well, I think yes, but I'm not sure if I see all the corners that you are asking for or about.
I guess I mean that because with the stuff you showed today, you use Foreman with some kind of rules companies. A hypothetical configuration consultant that might offer a hypothetical Ansible has a AWX tower UI plug this in so that source. Do you relate well Foreman and those tools?
Well, I don't see any problem with that. Yeah.
That's going to be the last question.
Yeah. So the question was whether there are people working on for support for other configuration management tools. So I'm sure there are some people from community that would like to help us with Salt, but as far as I know, there's no code yet. Just some information on Wiki page. How could we do that? So no code yet. Okay. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mark.